Welcome into this Week 11 edition of Buffalo Bills Weekly, where we take you inside the walls at One Bills Drive. He's Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. In this week's episode, we'll reveal how different offensive weapons continue to step up for Buffalo. We'll describe how Kansas City and Buffalo rely on their defenses, and two of Kansas City's most famous fans help us get ready for Sunday. Chris, the Bills are 8-2 for the first time in the Josh Allen and Sean McDermott era. They're in uncharted territory. It's the first time doing so since 1993. Many national analysts thought this team would take a step back this season. Instead, they've taken a step forward. They're winning in different ways, and their quarterback in Josh Allen is having his most efficient season yet.
Yeah, and Josh is a better decision maker this year. He's playing more within the structure of the offense, which we knew going in, and as a result, he's a more efficient player. We know the turnovers have been down, although he had a couple last week against the Colts. And then I think the other part that has really come together faster than people expected, the defensive players who were all new to the lineup have gelled rather quickly. And then on offense, their passing game, I think, has developed quicker than people expected, even despite the fact that players have been out due to injury.
Buffalo's defense was aggressive last week against the Colts. They came out and had a pick six on Indy's first play. They totaled 4 takeaways in the game and knew with a veteran quarterback in Joe Flacco, they could put pressure on him early and force him to make quick decisions. It worked. Now Buffalo has 19 takeaways. It ties for the second most in the NFL. How has this team been able to grab so many interceptions and force so many fumbles this season?
Yeah, I think we saw some of this last year when Sean McDermott was calling the defense. It focused more on splash plays, less on holding teams down in terms of yardage and forcing punts. So these takeaways have come in bunches even under Bobby Babich, the new defensive coordinator this year. And I think that's the focus. And you look at it, it's working. I mean, to your point, the turnovers have been numerous. They have a league-leading turnover differential of plus 13, and their offense is taking advantage of those to the tune of 78 points off turnovers. That also leads the league.
Buffalo's run defense struggled 2 weeks ago against the Miami Dolphins. Last week against the Colts, they struggled early, allowing running back Jonathan Taylor to have 107 rushing yards in the first half. But in the second half, just 7 rushing yards. They made key adjustments. They got in the rushing lanes and started to make big tackles on Taylor that made the Colts rethink, do we really want to run the football here?
Yeah, and the game kind of got a little lopsided on the scoreboard, so they had to throw more late. But honestly, Maddy, I think Bobby Babich and that defensive staff, it's almost as if they try to feel out what the offensive approach from the opponent is going to be through the course of the first half. And then, to your point, they make the adjustments in the second half and really clamp down. You want an example of why that has worked so well? You look at their points allowed. First half to second half this year, the Bills 121 points allowed in the first half through 10 games, second half just 72.
Buffalo's offense against the Colts didn't have the best day at the start of the game. Josh Allen struggled with 2 interceptions, so they had to rely on different players to get it done. It was the wide receivers who stepped up. Mac Hollins was 4 of 4 for 86 receiving yards. He was the go-to guy in that game. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel also had a few key receptions early on that got the offense in rhythm. How does this help the offense going forward?
Well, I think it makes them more difficult to defend. I mean, whatever the status of Coleman and Cooper are over the next several weeks, some of these other guys a little bit lower on the pecking order have made enough plays where an opposing defense like the Chiefs, for example, they can't ignore Mac Hollins. In the last 2 weeks, 9 targets, 9 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown. You can't ignore him in the scope of their passing game. So what it forces them to do is, for example, this week, it's like they can't put all their eggs in stopping Khalil Shakir in the passing game. You have to look at some of those other guys. I mean, even Curtis Samuel, to your point, he chipped in enough where he's at least on their radar. And so that forces opposing defenses to cover the whole field in the passing game. That's a much taller task.
After 3 straight regular season games in Arrowhead, the Chiefs are finally coming to Orchard Park. Is this game a must-win if the Bills want the #1 seed? We're talking about it next.
When we return, Maddy Glab interviews actors and comedians Heidi Gardner and David Koechner in this week's episode of You Heard. And then later, catch the press conference highlights in Soundbite Roundup.
What's up, everyone? This is Heidi Gardner, and you just heard.
Heidi, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thanks for having me. This is such a cool show.
This matchup on Sunday is, people are touting it as like the biggest matchup of the season. What are your expectations for Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes facing off?
It's weird whenever we play the Bills, there's just those like dependable players like what I see in Josh Allen that as a rival team make you so mad because you're like, oh, why are you so good? He's always a rival. And then this summer I was on a flight and I sat next to him and I was shocked that like what should be a rival of mine, I was so starstruck. Like I think it was a 3.5 hour flight and it took me 3.5 hours to build up the courage to even know what to say to him. Because I was like, this is someone, I watch Bills games when they're on, even if they're not playing the Chiefs. Like I love good football. And this is someone who has given so much to the game that by the end of the flight, and I didn't want to bug him either because but like by the end of the flight, like I was getting my stuff together and I was just like, thank you for everything you do on Sundays.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for giving your life and your body to us fans. And he was very nice. And so I just want to say, big respect there. It's always like a shootout between the two teams. It always feels really back and forth. And, I am expecting to be jolting. That's what I'm expecting, is to be like a joystick watching this game, all over the place.
Heidi, I want to get into what you're known for. You've been on SNL since 2017, but before that, you were a hairdresser and worked at a hair salon. How did you go from hair salon to being on SNL?
I mean, it's been the craziest journey, but yeah, I was working in a salon and I went to see a show at the Groundlings Theater because I had a friend of mine who was performing. That's a amazing comedy theater, sketch comedy and improv theater in LA. And I just went to see an improv show and I was like, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And she said, come back on Saturday night. We do like a mini SNL style sketch show. And she was like, cool, but I also think you should take classes here and perform. And I was like, what? She was like, you're really funny. So I just had a friend and some family members and loved ones encourage me to start taking classes. And I just kept on working at the salon, but doing that as a hobby. And kind of over the course of just 6 years of really just learning everything I could learn, taking classes, and then starting to perform. At a certain point, SNL came to the Groundlings and they saw me and wanted me to try out.
Which other Chiefs or NFL player, aside from Travis Kelce, since he's already done it, would you want to see guest host SNL?
I mean, I do want it to be Mahomes. But you know what? I'll give you guys one too. I mean, I think we'd all want to work with Josh Allen too. Kind of loosen him up, get him giggling. That would be fun.
These NFL players are so witty and they think on their feet so well that I think somebody who's outgoing could definitely make it work in that world.
100%. He's welcome anytime.
I love it. Well, Heidi, thank you so much for helping us get ready for this big Bills-Chiefs game and telling us about what life is like being a part of Saturday Night Live. We appreciate it.
Of course. Let's have fun this weekend.
Yes, nobody get hurt.
Yeah.
We'll be right back on You Heard with comedian David Koechner. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, this is David Koechner, and you just heard.
David, thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think about this matchup that comes at the right time every single point in the season?
It really always is a great, amazing game. I mean, what year was it? The one we had 7 seconds left. Is that 3 or 4 years ago?
I think that was 3 years ago.
I mean, that's one of the greatest games of all time. This match, I don't know what the line is right now. It should be even. I think
it was 2.5 yesterday when I checked. And that's just, give a couple points to the home team, right?
Yeah, it's impossible because anything can happen. I do anticipate a close game. But I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game either. because both sides have great defense.
Mhm.
And by this time of the year, there's plenty of tape,
Yeah.
so everybody can figure stuff out. So the Chiefs always like to do stunts on offense and defense. So I look forward to what Andy Reid's going to cook up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
The defenses of both teams, they've been winning games for the teams. You talk about two-star quarterbacks. Well, it's been two-star defenses in a lot of these weeks.
Right. It's great when there's so many great teams in the NFL. It really makes the games better. Emotionally, of course, I want it, but then psychically, I wonder, do I hope you guys win so we win in the playoffs or what? But all you can think about is what's right ahead of you. Think about like how athletes think, right? What's in front of us is all that matters. But I'd say you guys probably might be a little more hungry.
Yeah.
And obviously, the odds are going to be against us because now we're 9-0, and you're just looking for it to whatever, or maybe it's just going to be magic all season long. But yeah, it's going to be a great game. It probably is the game of the year so far, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
most definitely is. Well, you've got a bunch of stand-up shows coming up, one on December 15th in Michigan and two December 20th and 21st in Salt Lake City, Utah. What can people expect out of your stand-up sets right now?
Well, I do an hour and a half with my friend Rob Mayer. We've been touring together for years. Rob does a half an hour, then we do about 8 minutes together, which is unique. And then I do 50 minutes after that. So I've got 5 kids, so that figures heavily into there. I've been married and divorced, so that's part of the show too. There's also, should I say guns? Yeah, guns, manatees, and an auctioneer that's having a nervous breakdown.
Wow, that sounds incredible. You also you also have a movie that people can purchase or rent on Apple TV. It's called Ganymede. Can you tell us a little bit about this film?
Yes, there's an independent movie I did a couple years ago that just came out. Ganymede. Here's the log line. It is a Southern Gothic queer coming of age story with a horror twist. So that is a real genre bender. I get to it's a drama. I got to play a nasty preacher, so that was a lot of fun for me.
Well, David, thank you so much for helping us get ready for Sunday, a huge game coming up for both the Bills and the Chiefs.
Let me say one last thing.
Yeah.
Bills and Chiefs on the field, and whammy, whammy, whammy. Let's get at it.
Yes, I was waiting for that. We needed a champ kind impression to help us get into Sunday.
Love it. Well, best wishes. Good luck.
When we return, catch the highlights from this week's press conferences in Soundbite Roundup.
It's no bigger and no less than the last 10 games that we've had, and that's, I know the media perception and the fan perception and what this game means, but for us, it's just week 11 for us. When you play a team that does so many different things and they do it well, you have to kind of rely on what you did in training camp and trusting your base rules, and you have to remember a lot of things around the football field, from O-line to receivers to tight ends to running backs to me, and making sure we're on point with our calls, and again, just making sure we're all on the same page.
It's no difference. Each week I'm trying to do whatever I can, do whatever we can to win the game, whether that's Kansas City or whoever it is, you know what I'm saying? So this week it's just that same mentality, not doing nothing different, just having that same mindset of wanting to be the best prepared. Like Josh was saying, I feel like we kind of have that demeanor about ourselves. You see that from the older guys, knowing that it's just another game on the schedule. So I feel like they see our demeanor, they know that we have a process and we're sticking to that process every day. Yeah, I mean, the way Bills Mafia is, every time I'm out there, I always feel the energy, you know what I'm saying, regardless of who it is. So that being said, I don't think it's going to feel any different, I've played Kansas City so much at this point, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like another game, and Bills Mafia is going to be loud like they always are.
What we put the work in training camp for. I always say it, and I said it before, is if you're in the game, you're the starter and you're the guy. So always being prepared no matter who goes in, whether it's me or anybody else, that if you come up from practice squad and you're in the game, you're now the guy. The ball comes to you, you're expected to make plays. Obviously, I've been fortunate enough to get those nine targets and catches, and I'll continue to work to do that, but everybody in our room is expected to be the guy when they're in.
Every single game is like 1 out of 17, so it's the same size. But obviously they're a good team, so it's not a bigger deal to me, but I'm sure a lot of people will look at it that way.
To be mentioned with him, obviously he's a 3-time Super Bowl winner, multiple-time MVP, plays the game at such a high level, does some of the things that you don't see anybody else do. So to be mentioned with him is very cool from the football aspect of it. But I don't really get caught up in that too much. I just try to focus what I can do for the Buffalo Bills.
Welcome back into Buffalo Bills Weekly. This Week 11 matchup features a team who's knocked Buffalo out of the playoffs in 3 out of the last 4 years. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. These two teams are neck and neck in the standings this season. The Chiefs lead the AFC with a perfect 9-0 record. The Bills are in second place, sitting at 8-2. This game is about the race to the #1 seed. Chris, why is this game so important if the Bills want to be in the driver's seat here?
Yeah, well, the first reason is they're 2 games back in the loss column already due to the fact that the Chiefs are unbeaten. They also have a game in hand, the Chiefs do, having only played 9 to Buffalo's 10. So the Bills have to get this game because secondarily, the Chiefs' schedule is a lot easier down the stretch than Buffalo's through the rest of November and December. So if the Bills don't get this one, there really is no race to the #1 seed. The Chiefs pretty much have it locked up unless they completely implode down the stretch.
It's a must-win game for Buffalo if they want to be hosting those home playoff games. This matchup features 2 superstar quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. What makes them stars this year is different than in seasons past. This year, it's about their ability to string those couple plays together at the end of a game to get a victory. They do it with their legs, they do it through the air, and they also do it with smart decision making. Kansas City has 8 comeback wins this year. The Bills have 3.
Yeah, the Bills have been scoring more points on a regular basis. They're up to 7 games now with 30 points on the scoreboard by the end. That's due in large part to the defense, giving Josh and the offense extra possessions. So that's where he's benefited in terms of giving enough to the offense and the team to help them win games. He's also been supported by what I would call the most reliable run game that maybe he's seen in his career here in Buffalo. For Mahomes, it's different. He's not lighting up the scoreboard to the tune of 50 touchdowns a year like he did earlier in his career, and that's due in part to the fact that he hasn't had his 2 top receivers for most of the season, and Travis Kelce got off to a very slow start, so the offense has been somewhat anemic. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, he was upside down in his touchdown to interception ratio. He's finally above water now with 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And yeah, he's doing just enough. I mean, they're winning games. Last week, for example, they scored 16 points and win because they get to block field goal at the end of the game. So they haven't been lighting up the scoreboard as we've seen in years past. He's doing just enough to help them get over the hump.
Tight end Travis Kelce is somebody that's so hard to defend, and perfect timing for the Chiefs. He's playing his best ball right now. In the last 3 weeks, he leads tight ends in terms of receiving yards. These 2 defenses in Buffalo and Kansas City have been carrying these teams this year and helping them earn some big victories. For the Chiefs, they're allowing just 17.9 points per game. They've got a stingy run defense that's allowing just 83 rushing yards per game. They blitz at a top 3 rate, and their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, does such a good job at confusing opposing offenses. How has this Chiefs defense consistently taken the life out of offenses?
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing is their run defense, to your point, has been very low. It's been top 5 all season long, and yet they've been in close games. It's not like they've run off and left teams where the other team has to throw the ball the rest of the game. They're still 2-dimensional, and yet they still stone them. So they force long down and distance situations and find a way to get off the field. It reminds me a lot, Maddy, of the Buffalo defensive units of old under Leslie Frazier. Not a lot of splash plays. They just play straight up. This is what we are. Let's force long down and distance on 3rd down and get off the field. The Bills defense, meanwhile, has turned into that splash play defense, and they're making the big plays to get takeaways, more possessions for their offense. Both teams are doing it, and that's why both are top 10 in points allowed.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you have 2 defenses who are playing 2 completely different styles. The Bills just simply aren't letting opponents have the football.
Yeah, and when you reduce them to number of possessions, they obviously can't score as many points. A couple of weeks ago, for example, even in a game where the Miami Dolphins played possibly their best game offensively against the Bills in quite some time, they only had 8 possessions in the game total because they made them go the long way. Yes, they ran for a lot of yards, but that chewed up a lot of clock. And at the end of the game, the Dolphins don't have enough possessions to win the game.
With a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, it's about limiting the amount of times he has the football in his hands so he doesn't have those last few plays at the end of the game to win it for the Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills, thankfully, have been taking away the football at a high rate. You can catch the game this Sunday, November 17th on CBS and Paramount+. Chris will be on the radio with the call, so to hear him and Bills legend Eric Wood, you can listen to WGR 550. This game marks the 5th time since 1970 where 2 8-win teams have faced off in Week 11. We want to thank you for tuning in to Buffalo Bills Weekly. For Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. We'll see you all next week.